Okay, so apparently the Mets are forming a hip-hop hype team. According to the post that they made, the team will be called the Queen's Crew, and they will be part of a freestyle and choreographed hip-hop performances that will be on game days at Citi Field. Now, I'm not saying that this is stupid, but I am glad that we finally get a way for Jeff McNeil fans to meet. Episode 37 of the Mets Weekly Podcast, 60 minutes of brutal honesty, begins right now. So as for your usual house cleaning, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly channel for the premiere of this very podcast every single week. Turn on those post notifications for instant live streams regarding breaking news all off season long. Follow us on Twitter, TikTok, all of our individual links that are in the description. So I'd say that we can count on our hand with the amount of weeks we are away from spring training. We are getting very, very close to a lot of things wrapping up. We have the Mets making some transactions in and out, of course, on the 40-man roster. And it looks like we're getting close to seeing what this roster is going to be shaping up to be, regarding any crazy rumors that I'm sure we'll get into.
This is getting very close to that season where we actually get to start seeing some of these new acquisitions play. We get to see the prospects in some major league action, and we heard this week about a lot of the big league invites, which I think is very exciting to see if any of these guys actually kind of impress us in spring training and then decide, do they go in AAA, are they go in AA, how long is it going to take for they get to the big league. So it definitely is kind of getting into that nitty gritty, that decision-making process. Like, okay, you have your 40-man roster, but let's see, who's going to make that 26-man roster. There are those obvious guys, but I just feel that there are some guys that are going to be battling out for certain spots, which we're going to find out very soon. They still have to make those finishing touches that we're going to get to before they're fully ready to go.
I mean, with a team that has kind of remained flexible with a lot of their options. I mean, we've looked at it and we've seen that there's going to be a lot to see in spring training. There's going to be a lot of moving parts and a lot of, specifically the pitching, but a lot of young talent that is going to be on display, with them obviously loading up that farm system at the trade deadline. You'll see a few of those guys be featured and stuff like that. But as for right now with the Mets, let's get into what has been going on this week. So I want to begin with something that I despise doing, and that being giving Andy Martino attention. But he did say something that has spread to panic, freak out in Mets land regarding the payroll outlook for 2024. Last Tuesday on Mets Hot Stove, Andy Martino reported that the Mets are almost done with their offseason and have about around $10 million to spend, clarifying that it's not a hard number, but in the ballpark of what the Mets could have left for future additions this offseason, such as signings and trades. Martino added that the Mets are prioritizing relief pitching, and in terms of adding a bat to the offense, preferably a DH, is less of a priority. Post-arbitration settlements, the Mets' current payroll sits at an estimated $343 million, including the luxury tax bill, after notable offseason acquisitions such as Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, Joey Wendell, Harrison Bader, and Jorge Lopez, as well as nearing $50 million in retained salaries for 2024 for Justin Verlander, Max Scherzer, and James McCann.
I do find this very interesting, and I find it kind of misleading and a little puzzling when you consider the fact that the New York Mets offered that $300 million plus contract to Yoshinobu Yamamoto. And when the Mets didn't get Yamamoto, it's not like they spent anywhere close to $300 million. They haven't spent $200 million following that. So I find that, they could say like there's this number, but I think that going forward, if the right player presents itself, I do find that all of a sudden the Mets will have $300 million to spend. And what I always go back to as well was the Carlos Correa deal. That was another deal where the Mets had, okay, here is $300 million. They don't get Correa, then don't make a single move after that. So it's like, where does the rest of that $300 million go? You know what I mean? So I do, like, part of me gets it, but another part of me is a little frustrated when, again, I go, obviously the video I did to Oscar Hernandez, everybody saw it, if it feels like. I just don't like the idea of, okay, we have a certain number to spend. Let's give it to Harrison Bader when a guy like Teoscar Hernandez also gets a one-year contract. Like, if we're saying, like, I just find that to be a waste of 10 million. I think that there are better things that you could do with that 10 million. And then to go, even the thing that bothers me a little more is they say, our focus is bullpen and not necessarily DH. I'm actually of the opposite mindset. If it were up to me and I say, okay, I could have one solid DH or I could have another pretty good reliever, I don't think there are that many pretty good relievers available on the market. The fact that Jordan Hicks is gone, who else am I really prioritizing right now? You know what I mean? We know that Josh Hader's not coming here. Hector Neris, he's got some stuff that you like, maybe. But for me, it's like, okay, but if I still have guys like Jorge Soler available, I would much rather be focusing on that compared to worrying about the bullpen. And I just don't love the idea that they say, okay, we're just going to totally trust Mark Vientos. And my main reason for that is the fact that they're doing the same thing with Brett Beatty. And that's where it gets a little dicey because, like, okay, you want to count on one prospect in your lineup. Okay, I kind of get it. But now you're counting on two. And it's like, all right, now you're really getting risky because if both of these guys don't get the job done, now where are you turning? And then to make matters worse, they picked up a player in Harrison Bader who is just not even average offensively. I mean, that's what it comes down to. So you've now done basically a third of your lineup. It's just very lackluster, I would say. It's just very skeptical. It's risky. And then if McNeil has another down year like he did last year, if Marte's banged up again, what are we really working with here? I mean, you're really looking at Nimmo, Alonso, Lindor, Alvarez. Because the other half, there's question marks. So with the bullpen, it's like, okay, at least I have Edwin Diaz. At least I have Brooks Raley. I'm counting on Jorge Lopez to bounce back. I just find that like a everyday player, in this case, a designated hitter, is going to be more impactful for this team than a reliever or two relievers when the grand scheme of things, especially like we've talked about that secondary power source for Alonso. It's been on our checklist every year and still has yet to be addressed. So I still find, a couple of glaring things that are like right there that they're saying, okay, we're just going to focus on bullpen instead of addressing these other things that we've been talking about time and time again. So I understand it, but I disagree with it is ultimately what it comes down to.
No, I think it's pretty fair for any Mets fan to disagree that they should just spend $10 million for the rest of the offseason because there is glaring weaknesses on this roster. And we've talked about it day in, day out, week after week on this very podcast. When you look at a certain budget of like $10 million that could possibly get you like 2 relievers or 3 relievers around in that ballpark, there is like 3 spots in this bullpen that we all want to fill that do not include Drew Smith, do not include minor leaguers, do not include other pieces. There's about, 4 locks, which, we'll get into in a bit, but I'm not surprised, and I've been saying this for a long time, I'm not surprised that there is 10 million left to spend. If that is actually true, I don't know if it is. If there's only 10 million left to spend, you look at the Mets payroll, you have, Lindor getting paid, you have Nimmo getting paid, you have like these retained salaries with Verlander, Scherzer, and McCann for this year. You also have the arbitration numbers, which were just done this week. So that's another decent amount of, I don't know, 35 million or whatever, most of it being Alonso, almost 350 million. And that is with the luxury tax bill. And listen, I understand Mets fans being frustrated of where the Mets, they could have a $600 million payroll. They could 100% have a $600 million payroll and just blow everyone out of the water and just throw money at anything that is possible. But it's just not a sustainable way to keep things up. And even though their owner is worth almost $20 billion, it's just not going to flow as smoothly as people think it's going to. I understand he's worth a lot of money. There is going to be somewhat of a limit of how you can distribute this money. I don't think that the Mets have the motivation to go another $450 million payroll after what has happened these last 2 years. Like, I think that it's okay for them to take a step back. But again, the opportunity has to present itself. We'll get into those in a second. Everything that is going on with the Mets payroll right now, the guys who are guaranteed contracts, the guys who are here for the next year, it looks like this is going to be, in terms of spending money, it's a pivot year. It looks like a pivot year because they're giving out all these one-year deals. I don't think that it's Stearns looking at this team like a small market team, like I said last week. I think he's realizing what situation they're in right now. I'm not really upset as to what they're doing right now because I know what 2025 has to offer in the free agent market, and I much rather pursue a lot more pieces there to impact this lineup. I understand you have Pete Alonso on his last year, possibly. There is a reality where he's gone. When you just look at what the Mets have done, and they almost had $100 million in luxury tax bill before they even did anything this offseason. Like, that's how bad it was for a majority, $50 million that you're paying guys to not even frickin' play for. Again, like I said, if you didn't want an offseason like this, don't hire Billy Epler to do your GM job. If you did not want an offseason like this where they're not fully aggressive and they're doing all these one-year deals of quality and quantity and things like that, adding to the depth, then you can thank Billy Epler for putting them in this position. And listen, I understand Billy Epler at that trade deadline. I don't want to go fully into him because I'm tired of talking about him. But at that trade deadline, he did what he needed to do, obviously, but he would not have done that if it wasn't for Steve Cohen's money. Steve Cohen's money is the only thing saving the Mets from exploding into oblivion and trading away the entire goddamn team. Steve Cohen's money is saving them from being in big trouble. It's not going to just be the 100% advantage to this free agent market. And I get it, being frustrated with the Dodgers, like you said, with Teoscar Hernandez, of that one-year deal that they gave him. But the Dodgers are in a position where they can do that. They can get Shohei Ohtani. They can get Tyler Glasnow. They can get Yoshinobu Yamamoto. They can get Teoscar Hernandez. They can get all of these pieces. They're probably not even done because they had, a 100-plus win team that, went to the playoffs, that was good enough to contend, and now they're making it even better. The Mets won 75 games last year. They were terrible, and they had the highest payroll in baseball. So I don't understand wanting to do that for a third year in a row. I get the frustration, but you have to understand the position that the Mets are in.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not asking for them to exactly duplicate the Dodgers, but I do think that, year in, year out, we've seen the same thing with the DH position.
Yeah,
and I've wanted them to address it externally instead of trying all these internal options that have not worked. What are we at? 10 guys maybe that they've tried,
11.
maybe more? 11, exactly. So
one of them is Travis Blankenhorn in one game. So 10.
So 10. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. So you tried 10 guys who were, again, not big acquisitions, a lot of internal options, these small deals to get the Darren Ruffs and all these other guys. You give a Colin Holder, which is insane. But for none of that to work, it's what? And for me, it's that if you want to know what Alonso's truly worth and find out what his value is, can I see real power protection behind him? Just 1 year. If this is the 1 year we got him, let me see what he could do if he finally has a full team around him and see what this guy can actually do. Because if the Mets are of the mindset, is he just now power back? What is he really worth? Get a guy like Jorge Soler and put him behind him. And then let's find out, just how good Pete Alonso really is. Because I think he would be even better as an all-around hitter. Maybe not so much the home runs, but I think you see just a more complete player because the pitchers have to approach him differently, and he should just be easier for him to have better results. Doesn't have to play hero ball all the time. And for them to just kind of, do these other things, I don't know. For me, I just wouldn't have prioritized Harrison Bader and center field defense over the glaring power, the lack of power, I should say, that they don't have outside of only the couple guys that produce the Franciscos and Pete. Maybe Nimmo. We'll see if the second half thing was real or not, what kind of player he wants to be. But I just think that I prioritize different things than David Stearns is prioritized. That's what I think it ultimately comes down to. And if they're going to be operating under a little bit of a smaller budget, I think it should have been spent a little more in other areas instead of being so, crazy on defense. When even I look at, if we're talking about internally, I like my chances better with, the Drew Gilberts and all these other, minor leaguers that might come up to have an impact compared to Harrison Bader, who again has not even been average offensively, and that's if he's on the field. You know, the fact the guy has an injury history. So to me, if it that's what really it kind of builds up and just carries over when it's like, okay, we have a small budget, but we're gonna give 10 million to Harrison Bader. It's like the stuff like that just doesn't make total sense to me as far as the way I look at the team.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about that is that, like, again, I wouldn't call it a transition year, but what I'm saying is, like, you look at this current payroll, this current situation, you know, as they're eating this money with Verlander, as they're eating this money with Scherzer and McCann, it looks like there is a huge window and they're opening up a massive window, which I'm happy about for the young players. I'm really happy that they're doing that. We're going to see a lot of Mark Vientos. We're going to see a lot of Drew Gilbert. We're going to see a lot of these prospects. It sucks that we don't get to see Ronnie Mauricio, but like that's a different story. All the deals and all these little like placeholders of Harrison Bader, and you know, if they were to add like another infielder like like if they had Joey Wendell, from what I saw from them signing Harrison Bader, I think that they're going to give a good chance to Drew Gilbert. They're going to give a good chance to all of these, you know, all of these younger other pieces, and I'm happy that they're doing that. But let's not forget what the main need has been in this lineup. We already know what it is. I'm okay if you have a top 5 that is, you know, just pure shit records. I'm good with that. We know 6, 7, and 8, and 9, it's going to be a nightmare. We know it is going to be a nightmare. I really don't even care at this point. Just get me somebody that can sit there past Pete Alonso. Because if it ends with Pete Alonso is the only one that is going to be doing something. So obviously we'll get into the DH conversation because there has been rumors that have floated around about the DH conversation. But right now I'm just not really surprised. I've kind of been going along with it because it's just a situation that the Mets are in that sucks, but it sucks a little bit less because you have Steve Cohen's money. I don't think that they have Steve Cohen's money to spend right now, and that's what's really pissing off a lot of Mets fans. So as for the Mets pivoting that so-called $10 million to the reliever market, the Mets have been linked to multiple arms over the past week. Joel Sherman of the New York Post reported that the Mets have been associated with left-handed pitcher Wandy Peralta. Peralta has spent the last 3 seasons with the Yankees, posting a 2.82 earned run average, a 4.06 fielding independent pitching, striking out 21.1% of batters across 153 innings pitched. The 32-year-old reliever is a hard-throwing lefty with a high 90s four-seam that tops 97, high 90s running sinker, hard gyro-cutting slider, and a primary side-spinning changeup. The Mets have also been linked to John Brebbia, a 2-pitch right-handed reliever with a high-rising 90s fastball and a high-spin action slider. The 33-year-old Brebbia has posted a 3.83 earned run average, 3.69 fielding independent pitching, striking out 23% of batters across 124.2 innings pitched. The Mets have also been linked to other relievers such as Hector Neris, Phil Maton, as well as other trade conversations including Kenley Jansen and Chris Martin from Boston. The Mets bullpen currently sits at 4 2024 locks, headlined by star closer Edwin Diaz, lefty side slinger Brooks Raley, joined by the offseason additions of Jorge Lopez and Austin Adams.
Peralta, I feel like he really fits what the Mets have been doing, mainly because he is a former Yankee. And it seems like that has been a pretty top priority for David Stearns. They'll try to bring in all of the Yankee free agents. So he definitely would fall right in line there. But
is he better than Chasen Shreve, though?
I would sure hope so. Because if he's not, that'd be very alarming. But for Peralta, he would give something that, you know, some people are for, some people it's not as much a priority, but obviously giving you that second left-handed pitcher, and it kind of gives you some more versatility as far as what you want to do with Brooks Raley. And that's what I like, is that I like having the flexibility that I could bring Brooks Raley into the 5th inning if the situation called for it. Like if Sean Manaea gives me, 4 2/3 innings, and then, I have a big out I need to get, then I could bring in Brooks Raley in the 5th inning, and then all of a sudden you're facing the lower half of the order. You can go to your other guys, whoever else it is that the Mets add. And then if that left-hander comes up again later on, I could go back to not could go to Peralta in the 7th inning. So again, I just like that it gives them options. Whether it's Manaea making the start or even Adrian Hauser making the start, you need someone to come in, like just not having Brooks Raley solely in the back end of the bullpen with Edwin Diaz, allowing him to kind of float around, I feel like would be more valuable for them as far as just kind of opportunities. But with Peralta, he's been a guy, he's been solid the past few seasons, with the Yankees. Ever since leaving the San Francisco Giants, they've seemed to figure out something with him. And again, like we've said, we're of the mindset that Stearns has obviously done a good job evaluating pitchers, finding things that he likes. And one of the other things I like about Peralta is that age, 31 years old. It seems like he's kind of getting better and really finding himself as a pitcher. And for him to just be consistent year after year, it's not something you could take for granted, especially when it comes to relievers, because we know it's always, like good year, bad year, things like that. So for him to string together a few good seasons in a row is not something you often see. And, being able, and, I know I made the joke about the former Yankees, but having some kind of New York experience, it is always a good thing. This way it doesn't totally take you by surprise. And I find that, definitely important for pitchers, guys who are going to be in high pressure situations out of the bullpen, these high leverage scenarios. Having a guy like Wandy Peralta, who's kind of done it a little bit, that definitely would be nice. I mean, he's gotten 4 seasons this year. He got 4 seasons last year as well. So he's even closed out some games too. So I also think having that in your arsenal is also very important, because like we've seen before, not having Edwin Diaz also have to do everything would also be nice, because like I said with Brooks Raley, do the same thing with Diaz. Okay, we need him to come in the 8th inning. Maybe we need him to come in the 7th inning. It's like, okay, well, at least, Peralta might end up getting the save when it's all said and done, or the 10th inning. Like, there's so many different scenarios. So I'm definitely good with Peralta. I do think it'd be a good move for them. As far as John Brabia, however you want to say it, he's another guy who he's had some pretty solid seasons lately with San Francisco. He's a guy who hasn't been as good. He's right-handed, so he doesn't give you that lefty that's so important to some pitchers with matchups and things like that. Also made some starts and things like that for San Francisco, since they try to be like Tampa Bay and do these weird openers and things like that. So he's kind of been around a little bit, and just I don't think he's quite this. He's obviously a different pitcher than Peralta is. So I feel like with what the Mets have right now, I think that Peralta would be the better fit, and that's someone who I would be looking at. As far as these other guys, I think Hector Neris, there's a lot of people in that market. I feel like he may end up even getting a multi-year deal, so I don't really see something that the Mets are pursuing. As far as the Kenley and Chris Martin thing, obviously Chris Martin, I'm all for. I don't care. He's the one guy who kind of is different than the whole, don't target older players, because he doesn't need to be young and throw 100 miles an hour, because this is a guy that doesn't walk batters, keeps the ball on the ground. It's something that he's just, like we said with Peralta, just literally year after year with Chris Martin, no matter what team you put him on, he's always doing a really good job. So I'd be all for him. Kenley, I try to be avoiding that. This obviously not the same guy. He's gotten worse as time has gone on. And I just think that, him coming to New York where he hasn't been before, and a lot of expectations would be placed under him. And I think trying to figure out, how do you use him as well, with Edwin Diaz, because, Kenley's going to want to close and things like that. So I would try to avoid that, honestly. I would rather just make the move for Martin, because I think he'd be a really good fit. He's getting paid, nothing crazy, honestly, by Boston. So he kind of fits their timeline and their budget, most importantly. So, there's a couple of options, and everyone kind of brings something different to the table. But I think out of all of them, obviously I like Chris Martin, but I do think Peralta would also be a nice.
One thing I do like about Peralta, and it's kind of like my deal with lefties, is it's either you get strikeouts or you get ground balls. I don't give a shit if you can pitch to only lefties, you can only pitch to right-handed hitters. I prefer you to pitch to both, because this is 2024 and nobody gives a shit about a lefty specialist. One thing I love about Wandy Peralta is that he's a hard throwing lefty. Again, this is something that you really need in the Mets bullpen, besides from Edwin Diaz, that being velocity. You have a hard throwing lefty and a soft tossing lefty who's got ridiculous spin, and Brooks Raley, who's nasty as they come. Peralta would be a fantastic add. And for those of you who are wondering why the fielding independent pitching is so high, it's because that is a metric that does not like walks whatsoever. And that's one of the main reasons why I look at it. But we have really seen David Stearns really do well, kind of just having a conglomerate of lefties coming out of his pen from different types of styles, whether it is in the rotation as your 6th starter who can go extra distance, or somebody in high leverage like Josh Hader, or somebody, who can just get you a ground ball if you need him to. And this is kind of falls under that category of different things that Wandy Peralta can do. This Brabia guy, I don't know much about him, but I know that he's like this hilarious personality that New York would love. Like, sure. That's not really what I'm looking for, but it falls under the category of better than Drew Smith, but not as better as you think it is. Like, I think that he's solid, but like, I don't think that it's like something that I would 100% pursue. And this is the guy that I would 100% get. He is like the main guy that I would take to bolster this bullpen. He also made 10 starts last year. I don't know what went on there with Brabia, but that was the thing or whatever. Maybe it's like something similar to what Sean Manaea was doing. I think these are good arms that they've gone after. I'm kind of glad they didn't get Brett Suter. Guys like David Stearns, he has had success under him, and he's been decent for a good time. But this pen, when I look at it, it needs velocity. It needs velocity so goddamn bad. And he doesn't have it. Like, I need strikeout stuff. I need, dazzling sinkers, hard sliders. That's what they need out of the pen. Which you should be mainly looking at is strikeout stuff for relievers, especially for this type of game these days. I don't mind having a crafty lefty, but he's got to get me some whiffs. He's got to get me those high leverage pieces. I'm not trying to see relievers sweat it out. Give me these 30 pitch outings and stuff like that. I need blow away stuff in that pen, especially from the back end. Even though we do see a few pieces that are there, we'd like to add somebody else. It all really just depends on 1 year deals or 1 year with an option or something like that. That's what they're going to do for relievers. Cause I would love to go after the Robert Stevensons of the world. I'd love to go after these other pieces to protect the somewhat uncertainty they have with Edwin Diaz, because he is going to be coming back for injury. You never know. It's just how it is. I love Brooks Raley, and Jorge Lopez is a great bounce back candidate. We'll see how they do sculpt this bullpen, but we all know what our main goal is. We have said it 7,000 times at least a day. Push Drew Smith down the depth chart.
I like what you said there. I mean, at some point, I do want to see them try to get guys who are, like I've said before, at least have a little bit of are established, have had quality seasons recently. I don't want all projects. I just think that, some of them are going to go your way, but not all of them are. So I do want to see them take at least a couple guys who, again, like you said, just have some stuff, because we've seen, obviously, with Houston this past year, or actually it was 2 years ago, more so, it really stood out, where literally a bunch of guys that not everybody knows, but every single one of those guys threw super hard. And it didn't matter. Like, right-handed, left-handed, just every guy in there was throwing 97 plus. Meanwhile, the Mets have like a guy in Edwin Diaz that does that and nobody else. And he's obviously the best reliever on the team. So I just, like you said, I do want to see at least some other guys who have decent stuff, that have good stuff, that have high velocity that you could work with and really try to make something out of. Because like I said, like with contact managers and some of these other types of pitchers we've seen them bring in, their ceiling is very limited. And it's like, there's only so much you really could do here with the actual tools that you have at your disposal. So I do want to see them try to go with that different approach that you see the other teams do that have these really quality bullpens year in, year out.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to give me the best arms. You got to give me the best arm talent for relievers. You got to give me the best arm talent for a bullpen. That's how that succeeds. And, like you just said, with contact managers and things like that, they are just very limited in the sense where most of the contact managers they brought in here are in their mid 30s. So it's like, there's no ceiling there. You can't turn them into strikeout pitchers. And, they miss a spot, this shit's going to go over the fence. I mean, and we've seen that happen before. They've had those results before, and they've done it based off of track record, and it's come back to bite them in the ass. You need to see like some kind of upswing if you're going to bring in these experienced pieces. I think Wandy Peralta definitely goes into that category of like someone who's been proven, but it's not like this guy is the main stage reliever. He doesn't need to be the closer to be great. He doesn't need to be this to be one of the best relievers on your team. I mean, I think Ryan Stanek's the perfect fit here. Yeah. I think it's just so perfect. Whether you want to talk about, him, his personality in New York, or whether you want to look at just the overall stuff that he has, that is like just a perfect slot in that can be closer in a pinch and can get you strikeouts and could be your eighth inning guy and take a little bit even more weight off of Brooks Raley as well, and take some weight off of Edwin Diaz. If I'm going to get a backup closer, I'm not just going to get a guy like David Robertson, who's done it before. I need someone who's got high leverage stuff to pair up with Edwin Diaz. What has happened with the experience the last 2 years, I mean, since Cohen took over, I mean, they've brought in a lot of guys who've just been based off of experience. It has not really sustained anything, and not many of them have stuck. The selection of arm talent, that's what bullpens need to succeed in the future for projected success. And that's something that the Mets really do need to focus on, is basically catching lightning in a bottle, what they have liked and what they will like in the future. Now, continuing with pitching, after signing Sean Manaea to a 2-year deal, Mark Feinstein reported that the Mets are actively trying to trade for more starting pitching. Although it's unclear what caliber pitching they will acquire on the trade market, the Mets have been one of the multiple teams checking in on White Sox star pitcher Dylan Cease, whose ask continues to be steep regarding 2 to 3 premium prospects. Other starting pitchers to watch on the trade market include Marlins left-handed pitcher Jesus Luzardo, who is expected to be shopped aggressively, as well as Logan Gilbert, Wandy Peralta, Mitch Keller, and Tyreek Skubal. At its current state, the Mets rotation is headlined by breakout ace Kodai Senga, along with the additions of Luis Severino, Sean Manaea, and the trade acquisition of Adrian Hauser, as well as 35-year-old lefty Jose Quintana. With the David Stearns likeliness of a 6-man rotation, sixth-arm options for the Mets include Tyler McGill, Joey Lucchesi, Jose Budo, and David Peterson, who will miss the first few months of the season recovering from hip surgery. This is actually kind of weird because I'm pretty sure after the Sean Manaea signing, there was some reports from other sources that the Mets may have been done with their rotation. And then hours later, it says that they were trading. So I don't know what the hell is true here.
With the offseason, you never really know exactly who to believe as far as when teams say, oh, they're done. They're not done. Like, actions speak louder than words. So we'll see if any of these guys, they do add. But for me, I think the guy that probably makes the most sense, in my opinion, is Wandy Peralta. I know we just talked about Wandy Peralta, but I think there's a lot to like with Wandy Peralta. Obviously the David Stearns connection, no doubt about it. Milwaukee, this, that, and the other, whatever. He was an all-star a couple years ago, so I like that. That's always very important to me that they were an all-star. The age, that's another massive thing. Here's a guy who just finished a 27-year-old season, about to enter his prime. So that's perfect for if you want to build a starting rotation. And the other thing to me that I think is also really key is, okay, they've been making a lot of these one-year deals, like Severino, 1-year deal. Quintana, last year of his deal. Is Senga going to opt out? How long is Sean Manaea going to opt out if he has a decent year? Adrian Hauser, how long is he going to be here? Like, for me, there's no actual guys that's like, okay, they're going to be here for a while. One of the best things about Wandy Peralta is that contract. This is a guy that has a club option in 25 and a club option in 26, AAV of $3 million. Like, that combination is almost impossible to get, where you have a guy, and you know what? He's not an ace. He's not going to win you a Cy Young. He's not a number 1. Is he number 2? On his good days, yeah. But what he does is something that is still very important to having a quality rotation. Here's a guy who can hang out right in the middle of your rotation on a good team and your number 3. That's where he was with Milwaukee, with Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff. He hovers around your number 3. He gives you 30 starts, great age, great contract, consistent year after year. Again, not amazing numbers, but very good numbers. And I just think that he checks all the boxes of what any team would want, and I think most importantly, what this team could need. And I think that based off the other pieces that are already in this rotation, I think this is a guy that you slide right in there, because not only they're not getting Dylan Cease. I mean, let's call it like it is. I feel like, there are other teams that really could use him, and for them to not give up to that asking price, which is a lot of high-end prospect talent that we know the Mets are not going to give up. I mean, that's been evident in the Steve Cohen era. They're not going to be trading a lot of this top-end talent. So I would just kind of cross Dylan Cease off of the board. Jesus Luzardo, he's a guy that obviously his career's kind of been all over the place. We've seen good moments. We've seen bad moments. It's the Marlins. Would they be willing to trade a starting pitcher? I feel like they try to fleece us, honestly. I feel like they try to really increase the asking price to the Mets. Tyreek Skubal is one that I like a lot. I also love his age. Here's a guy who's left-handed, so he has that, again, that contract control, because I do want to see them, if they're going to have like this window of sustained success, there has to be at least some young starting pitchers that are going to be here year after year at very reasonable cost. So I think a guy like Scooball, who had a very nice season this year, albeit a small sample size, would definitely be someone I'd be interested in. And I would hope he would not cost anywhere near what a Dylan Cease would cost. So it would kind of fit more of what the Mets are looking for. Again, another guy to hang in your mid-rotation. And then another guy who also is very appealing to me is a guy like Logan Gilbert. Again, the age and things like that. So there definitely are, in my opinion, a lot more enticing options in the trade market compared to the free agent market. I think these guys are better fits for the Mets than the guys in the free agent market. And this is where I really want to see them go after. I mean, I would be very happy if they got a Freddie Peralta or a couple of these other guys I mentioned, because like we've said, like, okay, they have a rotation. It's okay. It's not great. It's not something that you feel comfortable with in the playoffs. And if you actually did add one more guy, like a Peralta or whoever, you actually have an okay six-man rotation now. Like a six-man rotation is way more feasible and much sustainable, I think, and easier to envision actually happening when you have that group as the guys on your team. So I do want to see them added because, again, it's like, okay, the rotation is okay, but how about let's be good? How about that? Like, can we actually be good? So I would like them to add a guy in the trade market, no doubt.
With the rotation, they really have to be careful with how they distribute this, because the two pitchers that are making the most money in the Mets rotation are not even pitching for us this year. So I think that when you look at it, you already have $40 million dead in this rotation that was like being spent for, like, what was it? About 130 million last year, and it was so goddamn bad. So I think the best way to look at it, if you are going to make another addition to the rotation, it needs to be on the trade market. Like, it has to be, because you need some flexibility with somebody in that rotation. Because you look at it right now, Senga's the only one that I think is like guaranteed to be there next year. Or does he have an opt-out after year 2? I think it's year 3 or something like that.
I thought it was year 3.
It might be year 3, something like that. So you look at, Severino, Minaya, Adrian Hauser, Jose Quintana, all of these guys could be gone next year. Having the top of your rotation with Senga and a controllable starter as your number 2, that's a good foundation going into the next year, whether you like what you saw in a prospect. Let's say Blade Tidwell breaks out or Christian Scott breaks out. I think that the Mets need a 1-2 for next year and a 1-2 for this year, obviously, to make the 6-man rotation a lot better depth-wise. I like Tyler McGill, of course. We know I have a soft spot for him, but I would like to see him in a trying pinch right now. Probably start off in AAA, or maybe just start off in the bullpen, something like that. Like, I don't want to see him as the first ever 6th man. Like, I'd like to see Hauser as the 6th man, or, if there's an injury, you have the 6th man as Severino or something. Like, I want to see them like deep in this rotation. Again, like I've said with quantity, I think the best way to cap this off is on the trade market. That being said, Jesus Luzardo is the main guy that I'm going after right now, because that is a potential ace right there. Okay. This is someone who throws freaking gas from the left side, disgusting slider. I mean, this is a strikeout pitcher who's only 26 years old, control through 2027. I mean, this is the number one guy that I would go after. The problem is, and like we've said with Dylan Cease, similar to Dylan Cease, the asking price could be very similar to what it was with Dylan Cease. Now, again, I think that overall, when he hits the stride, Jesus Luzardo will be one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. Like he was expected to be when he was there with Oakland, but it just, didn't work out. But now he's kind of hit that stride now. So I think that that is a perfect number 2. I don't care if he's a lefty or you have too many lefties or you have too many righties or whatever. Get me the best talent. And this is incredible talent right here. This is a strikeout pitcher from the top of your rotation. And comparing to Verlander and Scherzer and then Senga and Luzardo, it's younger. They can only get better. And you have the years of control. There were some concerns about Luzardo and some injury history last year. 32 starts. And we've talked about this before. 32 starts at a 25-year-old season. If he can continue to do something like that, I mean, that is something that the Mets are really, really going to need from the top end of the rotation. Right now, I love Sean Manaea. I think that Manaea is someone who could be a 2 in a pinch. At his best, he can be a 2. Luis Severino's been a 2 before. Adrian Hauser, back into the rotation. Jose Quintana, back into the rotation. I think that you have potential 2s in Manaea and Severino, but on the upswing of a guy who could be possibly an ace, of a guy like Jesus Luzardo. Dylan Cease, I think, is kind of a long shot. Logan Gilbert. I'd love to get Mitch Keller. I think Mitch Keller is a fantastic pitcher. Just these young, controllable pieces if you are going to address the trade market. Speaking of realistic ways of how this might go, I think they're just going to get another back end piece. I think that they're just going to kind of address it in the way that like maybe they went for either Hauser, how they traded for Lucchesi, like these just back end pieces that you just swing a little trade for. If they could get a number 2 starting pitcher on the trade market, I would love to attach a crappy reliever contract on there or something like that. Like just get something out, like another piece, so it can kind of lower it, because the Mets are just so hesitant to give up these prospects. And I understand not wanting to do it, but again, if the opportunity presents itself where the Marlins are calling you of what you want for Jesus Luzardo, I do it. I definitely would do it. And a lot of it goes for all these other pitchers. Like Tariq Skubal is another one with high upside. I get it. You might see it with maybe some pitching prospects. One of them will stick. You'll see something in spring training that you like. But I would like to see, some of the major league experience, but guys who are on the upswing to be your number 2 starter. I don't need to see the Mets just shell out 8 years to Jordan Montgomery because he had a good ERA in the postseason, and he's going to continue to do that at age 30. I think that they're going to address the trade market with back end pieces, but I think the best way to do it is to pair somebody up with Senga.
No matter how you look at it, the guys that they have right now in the rotation are not the guys they're going to have going forward, because the way I see it is that you have Luis Severino on a 1-year deal. If he's awful, I'm not re-signing him.
Yeah,
I'm like, stay away from me. But if he somehow becomes really good again, someone's overpaying him and giving him a crazy ace contract, which you're also not doing. So no matter what, he's not going to be here. So that's why it's like, okay, then where are you going to get that cost control? Because do you have it? Maybe like, again, like you're like, okay, let's have spring training. Like, does Christian Scott step up? Does Hamill step up? Does Tidwell stand up? Vassell, like, does anyone step up? Whereas you could just like, okay, let's make a trade and get someone we know is good. Like, let's just get Peralta or Luzardo or somebody and just kind of solve all your worries and not have all these question marks. I think is just really important, because, the one team that for the Mets, as we all know, that did get far was the team that had the great young rotation, and do we have DeGrom in the farm system? Do we have Harvey and Wheeler and Noah and all them guys hanging out still? No. So how else are you going to work on building up these young pitchers? By acquiring them. Like, if you don't have it, go get it.
I think it's just the perfect scenario right now. You just look at the rotation. You don't have it. You don't have a 2 there. You have a 1. You have your number 1. You have your guy, but you need somebody else there, because that's just kind of how it was, formulated with like this certain wild card series. If they were to get there, we're not saying they're not going to, but you need a 1-2, a 1-2-3. And right now they have like a few 3s, a few 4s, back end pieces, and then your ace and Senga. So when there is the game that you need to win, you go to, multiple pitchers that can probably step up in that type of environment. There has to be a controllable piece that isn't a prospect at the top of that rotation, because, you'd like to build for next year, which we've seen the Mets kind of take the focus to 2025 a little bit more than 2024. Trading for a number 2 or trading even for a number 1A and 1B, pair up with Senga. I think that's the best way to do it. So before we get into this next segment, I just want to specify that this is just a rumor and has not been confirmed by any high-tier MLB reporters, but it has been a blazing hot topic. We'll do diligence here. Now, according to Robert Murray of the Baseball Insiders podcast and reporter Hector Gomez, the Mets are showing heavy interest in slugging outfielder/DH Jorge Soler, among other teams such as the Red Sox and Blue Jays. A source also confirmed that Soler will be seeking a multi-year deal with at least 3 years guaranteed, where the Blue Jays are publicly willing to pursue that said term, and an impression was given that Boston could get outbid for Soler, with the Mets interest level fairly unknown. The free agent outfielder has also been linked to the Diamondbacks and Mariners, who are reportedly also looking to add a bat to their starting lineup. Jorge Soler is 31 years old and coming off another career year in Miami, where he slashed 250, 341, 512 with a 126 weighted runs created plus, smashing 36 homers across 580 plate appearances. Along with being a penciled-in 30 home run bat when healthy, Soler also has a monstrous postseason career, an all-time 1,021 OPS across 87 plate appearances as a former multi-World Series champion with the Cubs in 2016 and the Braves in 2021. Mets president of baseball operations David Stearns went on John Heyman's podcast and spoke on regarding the DH position. Stearns established that the Mets will continue to explore all areas of their team to make it better, and they will not close the door on anything regarding the offense, but they need to make sure that they give their younger players some space to play. Over the offseason, the Mets have also been linked to other DH options such as JD Martinez and Justin Turner, both perennial veteran offensive stalwarts and coming off of career years in 2023. Current internal options for the Mets at DH include graduated prospect Mark Vientos and DJ Stewart, who was brought back earlier this offseason and contains team control through 2027.
Jorge Soler is a perfect fit for this New York Mets team. I mean, this guy, he checks all the boxes that you need to be checked. Great against left-handed pitching. Prolific power bat. Consistent power bat. I mean, this is a guy that, ever since 2019 with the juice ball era, him and Pete Alonso were kind of battling it out at one point for the National League. I mean, not National League, but, just in all of baseball, because Soler was hovering around 50 home runs that year. This is a guy that, last year gives you 36 home runs in 137 games, doing it in non-easy ballpark in Miami. He's played also with the Braves, did well in the postseason, so he's got that going for him. And just being in National League East this past couple of years, that's always a plus. He also has played plenty of time in right field, not even just left field, also some right field. So, 31 years old, going around 32, so still basically in his prime. He just gives you everything that you could possibly want. And for me, it's like I said before, if I have a budget and I have to prioritize guys and things like that, he's someone I would have prioritized. If it was like, okay, Teoscar wanted to be a Dodger or whatever, I would have prioritized this guy. And even if he had to get a multi-year deal, 2 years, 3 years, that's fine by me, because the way I look at it, especially even with the uncertainty of Alonso, where else is the power coming from? I mean, that's really ultimately what it comes down to. Like we said, I mean, we've had the DH since 2020. We had the Mets have to be probably the worst in all baseball, I would think, since it's been history. They got to be one of the worst, I would think.
One of the worst.
As far as just pure production. Fix it already. You know what I mean? And again, it's like, okay, even if Marte goes down or something, at least Soler could play the outfield every now and then, and even give Marte some days off so he stays throughout the course of the season. Like we talked about with the six-man rotation, just trying to be able to keep your players on the field. I think giving Marte some days of rest, giving Nimmo some days of rest, even having them DH while Soler gets a start or two, not in a massive game, in a playoff game or anything like that, but just having that option, I think would also just be so beneficial for this team that it's just crazy to me that here's a guy who is a perfect fit for your team, is not going to cost anything astronomical, yet I don't think they're going to get him. I get the sense that they kind of are focused on getting the relievers, maybe another back end starting rotation piece. I mean, that's just the sense I get based off the way they've approached this offseason. I just think that even though he's a great fit, I don't see them doing it.
I think that the Mets are interested, but I don't think that they are the favorite to get him, and I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think that this report is bullshit. It's a player that the Mets have not been linked to, but you've just expected them to be linked to eventually. And I think that's what's kind of going on here, rather than the Mets actually just full on pursuing him, because we don't know what they're willing to do in terms of the DH position. Like if they, get a DH on a 1-year deal, like a veteran of a JD Martinez or Justin Turner or something like that, that might be a little bit more possible. But I would love for this to be true. Also had some random guy yesterday, I think we were talking about this, just say that the Mets were close to a deal with Jorge Soler, and nobody has confirmed that whatsoever. And for those of you who see these reports out here, for those of you who do these reports, I just want to say, you got to stop doing this. Like, just stop doing it. Like, it's just tired. It's a tired bit. Like, we get it. Everyone wants to be right. Everyone wants to do that. But it's like, unless you have actual information and can confirm like contract details and different types of things that are other things, I don't need to see Soler and the Mets are close to a deal. Like, give me a little bit more than that. I need to know a little bit more of that information to know that if you're legit or not. Here's the thing. I'm okay with the Mets taking a step back this offseason. I've already established that. But if they want a DH, if they want to address the DH position, from what I have seen for the last 5 years of how it has been around Pete Alonso, carrying this offense for 5 years, don't establish a limit on this. If you want a DH, go get your DH. Go get one of the best available, because this has been a problem no matter what. If they don't want to pursue a DH as heavily as they should, don't even bother. Give your playing time to Mark Vientos. Give your playing time to DJ Stewart. I don't even care, to be honest. The only way that they go at the DH position, in my opinion, should be all in. It should be all in. After what you have seen with Alonso for the last 5 years, just go full force at a DH. I'm fine with a guy like Jorge Soler. Like, go after Jorge Soler. If you need to give him a multi-year deal to get that done, get that done. Go after JD Martinez if you want to get JD Martinez. Justin Turner, I'm even fine with. I'm okay if they don't want to prioritize it, because that's what my expectation is. But if they want a DH, get a freaking DH. Don't get me a Daniel Vogelbach. Don't get me a Darren Ruff. Don't do a reunion with Dom Smith. Don't do that crap. Okay? Give me a legitimate DH to protect Alonso. If you don't want to do that, if you're not showing the big willingness to do that, don't even fucking bother. Don't bother at all. If they want to build a competitive lineup, Harrison Bader ain't going to do that. Joey Wendell ain't going to do that. I even tweeted this out because, like, all we can do is imagine with this. The top of this lineup, we already know it's probably going to be top heavy this year again. I have it as Nimmo in left field, because he's probably going to play more left field. Alvarez at catcher batting second. Lindor batting third at shortstop. Pete Alonso at first base. And then you have Jorge Soler at DH. Perfect top 5, in my opinion. And then you have the rest of the fucking misfits. Who gives a shit? But you need somebody past Pete Alonso. 30 home run power threats, and Alvarez, who could possibly do that in a full season. Lindor was 30 home runs. Most likely it will be like 25 next year. Pete Alonso is Pete Alonso. You have 240 home run power threats at the top of this lineup. I need somebody past Pete Alonso that's not Jeff McNeil batting fifth, and it's not just 3 hitters pulling the weight.
With Soler, before he signed his contract with the Marlins a couple of years ago, that's someone that you really wanted the Mets to get even that season at that time. And I think that after that, he opted out of the deal because he played so well. The fact that he's still such a high priority for the Mets just shows how long this has been going on of it being a problem. So it's like you had your opportunity a couple years ago, you didn't do it, and it's like he's here again, and you still need him. You know what I mean? And like this is one of those very few times where this happens, and it's not a guy who's like 39 years old and like, oh, he's finally available again, but now he's 39. Like at least he's still 31, and you have another opportunity to get him. So again, it's like it's right there. As far as the lineup, I agree with you. However, I believe
Alvarez should be batting 9th.
No, well, not that. I think Starling Marte is going to bat second again. I get the feeling they're going to go with the veteran. It's where he wants to bat. They're going to put Marte second. And then I still get the sense that they're going to start it off with, unless they add somebody, I still think McNeil is going to bat after Alonso. I think that, while I think they should do something different, I think Alonso should be batting second, first of all. I think it should be Nimmo, Alonso, then Lindor. If you had Soler, JD, whatever, they go there. But if not, you have to do Alvarez. And then, like you said, just figure out the rest of those guys, whoever is just playing well at that point. Because, again, with Beatty and Bader, who knows? And then Vientos, it's a pure hope. And then Marte, health, McNeil, again, hopefully bounce back. So, like, there's just so many question marks with those other guys. Again, I think there are other ways to construct this lineup, but that's how I think they're going to do it. I just feel like it's just the sense I get. It's what they've done. I don't see it changing. I just think that ego is a thing. You know what I mean? Like they paid Marte a good amount of money. They're batting him second or somewhere near the top. I mean, that's just ultimately what they're going to end up doing. I think the same thing goes for Jeff McNeil. This is a guy that has tenure now. They gave him the extension. the all-star, the batting tout, things like that. He's going to be somewhere in that top half. Like, whether we agree with it or not is probably what they're going to end up doing. And again, I want to see them approach differently. But they cannot have Alvarez bat ninth or eighth or anything like that again. That's absolute. You can't do that. That's just insane. With the lineup that you have, like if you had a great lineup, sure, put him in the bottom, take the pressure off the rookie, off the catcher, fine. But your lineup is so bad that he's actually one of the best hitters, so he needs to be towards the top. Like, so again, there's other ways that they should do it, but I think ultimately that's how they're going to. And again, that's why it is so important that they actually get another established power bat. So it gives them even more flexibility, and it's more viable if you want to try these, veteran, 10-year contract, all this other stuff.
I will say that if McNeil is batting after Alonso, the worst power hitter in the entire lineup, by far, you're asking to lose. You are actually asking to lose. Like, I understand. Listen, if you want to protect a power hitter with a batting champion, first of all, go fuck yourself. But second of all, you just can't look at this lineup and just say, yeah, Jeff McNeil, after this top four, he's the next best hitter, and I'm going to put him after Alonso. Like, I personally don't care what they're making or what they're doing. Again, like, I've looked at Marte as a non-factor for a long time, but I can't imagine just having a recipe for success where you have the worst power hitter behind Alonso.
I'm going to ask you some questions. Who's a better hitter, Jeff McNeil or Harrison Bader?
Bader. Better quality of contact, pulls fly balls, doesn't scream at himself.
Ultimately, Harrison Bader is giving you a WRC plus that you love under 100, below average overall offensive production. When it comes
with the shift going away, I haven't really liked WRC plus as much as you think I have, but Jeff McNeil's got to be in the bottom third if you're going to have any chance.
Next one, would you rather you like Jeff McNeil more or you like Brett Beatty?
I like Mark Vientos more.
That's not what I'm talking about. That's a different position. I'm talking about third base right now.
With how they've structured it in this lineup, the DH has to be fit. Like, it has to be. Like, how they've structured it with like all these lower tier lineup guys like freaking Bader and Marte. Like, the best case scenario is the DH batting fifth. Like, as you're looking at it, if Mark Vientos is Mark Vientos, again, I would love to get a freaking DH bat like Jorge Soler, but the best case scenario, it has to be Vientos batting behind Pete Alonso. Like, that's the best case scenario if they don't get a DH. I'd love to.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. So, like, if we're under again, I don't think they're going to add a DH. So let's say they don't. The question is Vientos batting after Alonso? Is Alvarez batting after Alonso? That's really what it comes. Or do they end up doing McNeil again? Like, that's really what it comes down to.
It's so stupid. Like, to me, like, thinking of a DH as a luxury, like, that's just dumb after what you've seen for the last 5 years.
I agree with
that.
Yeah,
but then also saying that, okay, well, we can just do a full 180 and just be like, okay, we're not going to get protected for Alonso. Let's put the worst power hitter behind him to protect him. Like, it's just like a full 180. Like, you don't understand what course they'd be on if they don't get a DH. If you want to protect them with freaking Justin Turner or JD Martinez, like, I'm fine with that. It's just like, if I see Jeff McNeil protecting Pete Alonso again, I'm jumping off a bridge. That means that they have absolutely learned nothing. Like, they have learned absolutely nothing for the last 5 fucking years that you've seen with Pete Alonso carrying this entire goddamn offense. Like, I don't give a shit about Jeff McNeil's batting titles. I don't care about his all-star selection. I don't care about any of that. They cannot bat him after Pete Alonso. Like, that is there's some other guys they can't put about behind Alonso, but how you see this lineup, I'd rather literally just give it to Mark Vientos to bat fifth behind Alonso than anybody else on this fucking lineup. I much prefer Alvarez in front of Alonso. Like, I just prefer it like that way.
Well, if you put Alvarez in front of Alonso, where would you put him?
I'd put Alvarez too. Batting second to me is like the low on base guy that gets a lot of extra base hits, that swings the damn bat when your leadoff hitter gets on.
Well, what we've seen is that a lot of cases, this second hitter is the best hitter. I mean, that's where Aaron Judge bats. That's where,
of course,
occasionally Mike Trout is bat. Like, every team has a different philosophy, and
sure,
there's two things that are a problem here. Number one, David Stearns never had a stacked lineup with a bunch of power hitters.
Yeah, that's the
base
thing.
guys, wherever, that you get to see how he stacks lineups. Number two, Carlos Mendoza's never been a major league manager, so you don't know his trends either. So I think you have two unknowns as far as this kind of team what they're going to do with it. So until they, again, assuming they don't add anybody, we'll see what they actually do. But I would not be shocked if they did do what they did before of Marte second and McNeil fifth, and then Alvarez, God knows where. Like right behind.
If I had it my way, Jeff McNeil's lucky to be on the fucking lineup. Like, the guy just has zero power. Like, he's irrelevant to me.
But you're replacing with Joey Wendell, who has even less power. So
you have so many 9-hole hitters here that, like, I don't need a 9-hole hitter protecting Alonso. Like, it's just so ridiculous. Like, if McNeil, again, I say this all the goddamn time, if McNeil was the leadoff hitter, if he was leading off, he would be perfect. But you spent $162 million for a guy to do that. So it just makes McNeil so irrelevant. The job would go to Ronnie Mauricio, in my opinion, at second base if he was actually healthy, but he's not. I say McNeil sucks because I hate his hitting profile, and I don't think it's going to get any better. To this lineup, he's not valuable. To every other lineup, maybe he is valuable. And for some reason, he's being valued so much that you see him batting fifth behind Pete Alonso. It's just stupid. Like, it's...
Well, I think it's a combination of they value him because of his past accolades and things. But again, like we said, there's so many guys who just aren't that great and not proven that who are you really going to go above? You know, again, like realistically, with the way Beatty has performed, they had to send him to the minor leagues again last year because he was that awful. And to me, again, Bader, first of all, needs to be healthy, and number two, I just don't think he's all that good. So again, there's also the combination of the other options aren't that great, where they don't have any other proven power sources, consistent power sources outside of, like we said, it's very top heavy.
You put somebody in that batting fifth position, it makes the lineup so goddamn better. They're seeing that as a luxury. For some reason, it looks to me that they think that Vientos is good enough power protection for Pete.
That's the thing that's so annoying about Vientos is that he has great pure power. Like, he has that. Like, Mark Vientos is a power hitter in the sense that, like, he can hit a bunch of home runs, he can get the ball far, but like he hasn't done the major league level yet. And
he
that's
done
why
it consistently.
it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And like that's why, again, I feel like he can do it, but I don't love this idea of, okay, we fully trust him and we fully trust Brett Beatty. That's the thing that bothers me the most, is that they have full trust in both of them, where I'm like...
Right now, they have a top four, a bunch of prospects and noodles. That's it. Like, that's all you have.
That's ultimately what it comes down to. Yeah.
That's literally what you're looking at. You just have a bunch of pool noodles, hit the ball 60 miles an hour, Jeff McNeil. Then you have a bunch of prospects that are unproven. And then you have the top of the lineup, which, you got star power there that Stearns has never dealt with before. They need to fill the 5-hole. They need to fill that 5-hole right now. And I'm okay if they want to go with Mark Vientos if they don't get a DH. But it's like, you can't have the worst fucking power hitter protecting Alonso. Who is intimidated by Jeff McNeil? No one. No one is intimidated. Like, there is no... He has less intimidation than Daniel Vogelbach. Get me a deal, because how they pretty much kind of catty-cornered this team, bringing in Harrison Bader, kind of betting on Marte bouncing back. There's not really many holes to really fill except the DH position and except the guy who's batting fifth. Like, if they want to put a power hitter behind Alonso and then McNeil sixth, sure, I don't care. Do I prefer McNeil to just be gone? Yes. But if you put him sixth, fine. I'm not putting Brett Beatty over Jeff McNeil. As stupid as I don't like Jeff McNeil, I'm not putting Beatty over him. I'm not putting Bader over him.
That's the point I was making before, is that by default, he's going to...
They need to sandwich somebody in between Alonso and McNeil. They have to do that, because you're literally asking to lose by putting the worst power hitter to power protect Pete Alonso.
So that was my main point I was getting to, is that these other guys, like, it's not happening. If Vientos struggles again, then what do they do? Like, because again, he hasn't done it yet. Like, if
DJ Stewart, like, that's the thing. It's ridiculous.
The fact that they're relying on a guy,
they need to get a bat here. They need to do it.
Yeah, you're relying on a guy who had like a 1 month, hoorah, and then went back to cold. Like, seriously, a journeyman? Like, this is what we're like. This was protecting Pete Alonso. Like, come on.
So, speaking of Pete Alonso, now at this current moment, the Mets have yet to discuss a long term contract extension with Pete Alonso this offseason. But as for more from John Heyman's podcast, David Stearns also spoke on the upcoming free agency of Alonso and his future with the Mets. Stearns stated that Alonso is one of the best power hitters in baseball, and we are fortunate to have him. He's a homegrown player. He cares about our organization and clearly the fan base, and our organization cares about him. We'd love to keep that going for a long time. According to Jim Bowden of CBS Sports, the Mets' new front office under Stearns has indicated a desire for Alonso to finish his career as a Met. Alonso has told teammates that his preference is to spend the rest of his career with the Mets. That's usually a good sign. However, his agent Scott Boras has a long history of taking his clients to free agency versus signing an extension with their team. The Mets listened when teams called about Alonso, but were never seriously considering trading him, at least not yet. They could reevaluate the situation at the trade deadline, but likely will keep him through this season and then be willing to match the best offer he receives in free agency. Earlier this week, the Mets and Alonso settled at $20.5 million for 2024 to avoid arbitration with their star slugger. And as for across just 5 years in the majors, Alonso is already fourth all-time in home runs for Mets history, 10th in runs batted in, third in slugging percentage, fifth in OPS, and also leads the majors in home runs and runs batted in since his major league debut in 2019. Alonso is now 29 years old and is set to become a free agent after this upcoming season, represented by baseball's high roller, Scott Boras.
For years, I've been saying that he should have been extended. I think that the Mets could have saved themselves a lot of trouble if it was one of the first things they did once Steve Cohen took over. I mean, that's how highly I would have prioritized this move, because instead you decide to, like we said, get all these 40-year-olds, do all these other things, this, that, and the other. And now it's like, okay, look at the situation we're in. We could have not only saved ourselves time, stress, but in the long run, the Mets could have actually saved money if they did the extension before he continues to have great year after great year after great year, continually increasing his value. So they have approached this whole thing wrong. They could have fixed this a long time ago. They decided not to. And I said in the beginning that, we've seen Steve Cohen offer these $300 million contracts that people haven't taken, but somehow they have a $10 million budget. The way I like to look at it is that I hope that when the opportunity presents itself, that's where the money really opens up. And I feel like once Alonso does hit free agency, that's where Steve Cohen's money has to open up. We already lost our Wheeler and, whoever else you want to mention. This is the guy they can't lose. I mean, like we've said, this guy has carried this team. He's been the heart and soul of this team. He's been really the only production they've had when it comes to actually scoring runs, which is the ultimate, we'll talk about run prevention, all this other stuff. Scoring runs is what matters. Like you said, most RBIs, that's what I love. I love those old man stats. Like, he brings in runs. So it's so important that I just think that, when it comes to free agency next season, no matter what, they've got to retain him. However, Stearns, whatever, that's just how it is. Because it's like we've talked about in the past, who's going to replace him? Like if you're, we have Mark Vientos, we don't need Soler. Like if you're already have that approach, now imagine what it looks like if you don't have Alonso too. Now it's like, okay, now what does your power really look like? The team would just, it wouldn't be a good team at all. Like they already had a bad year. The team would be awful without him. And we've seen it in the win-loss record in the very limited amount of times when he's been hurt by other teams, not got injured, been hurt by other teams. We've seen how bad they are without him and the difference he makes when he's in the lineup versus out of the lineup. So it should just be the ultimate priority as far as keeping this guy. And obviously, Boris going to make it go to free agency, and they're not going to be able to get the extension done. So I think that when the time comes next offseason, they just got to get it done as soon as possible just to get out of the way. Like, I'm glad they got the Nimmo thing out of the way early in the offseason this past year so it didn't linger too far on, towards February, January, things like that. I really want to see him do the same thing with Alonso. Wherever the number is, sure, go for it. He's not going to get $300 million, whatever. Like, if it's near the Matt Olson deal, perfect. We'll do that. That's great. And then you keep them, and then we're all done with this. Don't have to talk about it anymore. Because there really shouldn't be a discussion. Like, there shouldn't be a scenario where there isn't Alonso. And it's not so much the player, but it's also the person and what he means to the team as far as a homegrown talent and being the spokesperson for this team. Like he does like so many other things that are not just on the baseball field that he should be a top priority to retain down in the future.
When I look at this Pete Alonso scenario, I'm not panicking yet. I really am not, because I think that we're in like this comfortable situation where we have seen Alonso prefer to stay with the Mets. He loves to be with the Mets. This is like his, maybe a little too much, but the whole situation with Scott Boras, we've seen him publicly say that, you know, the polar bear's not in any hibernation, whatever the bullshit he says. Boras and Alonso, they're not straying away from the possibility of signing an extension. They're not in any hibernation with that or whatever. We saw them settle at $20.5 million. Maybe there's a possibility where it's in the ballpark of the AAV that he would receive with a big contract extension. Maybe it might be like 23, 24 million, 25 million. Something like that. So it's like in that somewhat ballpark. So I think that they got a little closer. But I did say, honestly, I said this on Twitter like a few days ago, I kind of want to see it not go through. So then it gave them a little bit more space and like more breathing room to discuss a possible extension. We've seen that with a few players in their last year of their contract that happened. I'm not worried about Pete Alonso leaving. Like, I think that there's a good chance at this current moment that he will stay and wants to stay. Right now, they're in a situation where they should not take it for granted that Boras is willing to listen. And I think that there are going to be contract extension talks. I don't think they're going to get far, but there has to be a point where the Mets need to gain common ground. And there should not be a situation where we hear 1 week before opening day, the Mets and Alonso have not discussed shit. Like that, I don't want to hear. That's when I'll start to panic a little bit, because then you're going to piss him off. And then you know, there's a possibility where, you know, he hits 70 home runs and you're going to be overpaying like 400 million for the guy. I need to see the Mets gain progress on this. I'm not expecting an extension to happen this offseason. I think we've all accepted that, but I need to see the Mets gain some ground on this with Boras, with Alonso, see what you have here. I think you got a decent benchmark in $20.5 million in his ARB3. Like having his ear right now for this year, like that is the only, like that's the only advantage that you have. Right now, I'm okay with it. Middle of January, having discussion extension. They still have tons of things to do in the offseason with their bullpen and other things. By the time it's opening day and we don't see a single update, that's when I'm starting to get nervous, because there wouldn't be any common ground that was gained at all throughout an entire offseason that you could have had these discussions.
There's been opportunities.
There have been,
so they only have themselves to blame for this. And the main thing is you just don't want to see another Jacob deGrom scenario where they knew they weren't going to keep him and don't trade him. You know what I mean? Like to lose him for nothing. Like, I would rather they traded him than lose him for nothing, ultimately, is what it comes down to.
You need to hear, like, oh, the Mets offered this, he countered with this, the Mets offered this. Like, there has to be some kind of progress. Because if the Mets did not have any extension talks, with Boras already saying that we're not opposed to it, that's an issue. That is a 100% issue, and you're taking it for granted, because we all know how Scott Boras is. That now brings us to the questions that you guys sent to us. For those of you who do not know, if you want to ask us a question, make sure to click the link in the description, fill out our form with your name, your Mets-related question, and it could be featured on the next episode of the Mets Weekly Podcast. This one is coming from Joe Dark 76. Do you think Marte should DH to keep him healthy for the entire season? We have talked about Marte a lot this offseason. Marte DHing.
I mean, I don't hate it. I think it kind of goes into what I was saying, that if they signed Soler, it's a lot more feasible because, again, you're able to do it while still having quality bats in the lineup. It's hard for them to do it with Mark Vientos here unless you want DJ Stewart making starts in the outfield, or if you wanted to get really, I mean, like, it's just not really a good scenario with this current team, because you could do something really weird where you want to have the worst defense in the league. You put Vientos at third, make Beatty a second baseman, and then put McNeil in the outfield, and then all of a sudden Marte could DH. So, I mean, like, I just think with the current team that they have right now, they can't do it yet. I think they need to add a piece that can play the outfield in order to do it. Again, like Teoscar Hernandez is no usually perfect. Like we talk about Hunter Renfroe. We've talked about so many different guys that could have filled this role, that could have accomplished a lot of things. that they just didn't do. So I don't hate it, and I think it is a good idea occasionally just to keep him here throughout the entire season. But I don't think Starling Marte's bad is a DH for 162. I think the ultimate, like, he still can be a valuable player, like we said, with his talent, but that has to do with in the field, with his arm, with his speed, stealing bases. Like, it's not so much as bad. Like, it's all the other things he does that makes him a good player. So I think that they need to add someone else if they're going to do that. They can't do it right now with the current pieces they have because it ultimately will and be a net negative with what it would do to your defense.
I think that I say this in the style of Elmer Fudd. If I see Marte DHing at all this year, I'm going to be furious. I am going to be so pissed. It's not really just like him DHing, limited power, whatever. The fact that they signed Harrison Bader, which kind of just like pushes the DH options out a little bit more, you have put yourself in a position, like we just said with Jorge Soler and all that stuff, where you need to have a home run hitter at your DH position. Whether you go with the young guy in Mark Vientos and give him the leash, or you bring in somebody. Again, I don't need to see Starling Marte protecting Alonso. I don't need to see Jeff McNeil batting fifth. I don't need to see, like, right now you have, again, catty-cornered yourself into a situation where the DH bats fifth and the DH needs to have power because of the Harrison Bader, what you're betting on Marte, keeping Jeff McNeil. I have said multiple times, Starling Marte should be looked at as a non-option this offseason. Why would I put a non-option in the biggest possible problem that the Mets have had for the last 5 years? Why would I do that? Like, I'm looking at him as a non-option. Why would I look at him as a DH option? I understand he's 35 years old and he's got injury history. I'm okay with putting him in right field with the risk right now. When you brought in Harrison Bader and all of these outfield depth positions, they have no choice but to put him in right field. And if it doesn't work, oh freaking well. I'm not putting this dude at DH. It's not happening. I'm just not putting Starling Marte at DH because they have put themselves in the situation where the DH has to be a power hitter and the DH has to bat fifth because of all the 9-hole hitters that they have here with Beatty and McNeil and Bader. I'm not putting a Starling Marte who was banged up last year, who has a shit contract, at DH. That's just not going to happen. Again, I understand the seniority. He probably will be DHing and batting second, knowing our luck. I'm okay settling for in-house options at DH, but like, come on, that's ridiculous. And I apologize for, cursing out whoever just asked us that, but it's just like,
it's not you, it's the team. Like, it's not the viewer's fault. Like, it's just the team being dumb. Like,
absolutely
like, like we said, I like his idea with the right pieces around him. The Mets just don't have those pieces right now. But his idea of keeping him healthy, we're all for. But I just think the team that they have, they can't do it yet.
Your rapid fire stories for this week, there is a lot of them, so strap in, folks. The Mets have avoided arbitration with 6 players after agreeing to terms with DJ Stewart earlier this offseason. The Mets have settled at $20.5 million with Pete Alonso, $5.1 million with Adrian Hauser, $2.2 million with David Peterson, $2.2 million with Drew Smith, $2.1 million with Tyrone Taylor, and $1.6 million with Joey Lucchesi. The only arbitration case unsettled for the Mets belongs to right-handed pitcher Phil Bickford. The Mets have signed right-handed pitcher Yaxel Rios and left-handed pitcher Danny Young to minor league contracts. Rios is 30 years old and spent 2023 with the A's while featured in the World Baseball Classic for Team Puerto Rico. Young is 29 years old and spent 2023 with the Braves, posting a 1.08 earned run average in 8.1 innings pitched at the major league level. The Mets have claimed right-handed pitcher Max Kranick off of waivers from Pittsburgh. Kranick is 26 years old and underwent Tommy John surgery in 2022 and pitched just 20.2 innings in the minor leagues last year. The Mets have also designated catcher Cooper Hummel for assignment as the corresponding move. The Mets have designated infielder Diego Castillo for assignment as the corresponding move for Sean Manaea, who was introduced this week. Castillo was claimed on waivers by the Mets last week from Arizona. The White Sox have signed outfielder Rafael Ortega to a minor league contract. Ortega spent all of 2023 in the Mets organization. organization, sampling just 136 plate appearances at the major league level. The Dodgers have signed right-handed pitcher Eliezer Hernandez to a minor league contract. Hernandez was acquired by the Mets from the Marlins last offseason and did not appear in a single major league game, battling multiple injuries in 2023. Former Mets prospect Anthony Kay has signed with the NPB's Yokohama Bay Stars. Kay was a former first-round pick by the Mets back in 2016 and was one of the main pieces sent to Toronto in the Marcus Stroman trade back in 2019 before the Mets reclaimed Kay off of waivers last season. Top prospects Kevin Parada, Jet Williams, and Blade Tidwell have all been invited to 2024 Big League Camp. All three of these prospects were selected by the Mets in the 2022 MLB Draft. Mets prospects Drew Gilbert and Luis Angel Acuna will begin 2024 in AAA Syracuse. Both prospects were acquired by the Mets during last year's trade deadline in exchange for Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer. Former Mets infielder Bud Harrelson has passed away at the age of 79. Harrelson was a member of the 1969 World Series team and spent 13 years with the Mets as a two-time All-Star and a Gold Glover in 1971. Parting words for episode number 37. The only man to wear it was Casey Stengel, the first ever manager in Mets history in 1962.
Like we said for this episode, you know, you read a lot of things, you hear a lot of things, but until it actually happens is where you can actually put stock into it. So, and again, it's like we're getting closer to the regular season starting and spring training and all that stuff. So I'm just kind of done with the rumors. I want to see action. If you're going to get some players, let's get them. You know, let's stop having all these fake accounts and fake reports and things like that. Let's get some, you know, bullpen pitchers. Obviously, I'd like a DH. Don't think it's going to happen, but let's just kind of finish this thing up and let's see what happens when it really matters.
Just, you know, finish it up. I'm okay with anything that they do at this point because I just did not have high expectations. I thought that it was just going to be more of a 1 year smart and savvy deals, of course. Again, if the opportunity presents itself, they got to go for it. They have to go for it because there are pieces that are here for not many long. One being Pete Alonso, like we have just said. Hopefully this offseason starts to pick up a little bit because I'm pretty sure I did calculations. There's like 170 free agents left, and it's the middle of January. So this is actually insane at the rate it's going. Hopefully we get some news. We'll get to see where everybody goes, who the Mets pick up, and when that does happen, we will be going live for the breaking news regarding any of the additions that the Mets make to their 40-man roster. So other than that, we'll see you guys next time for episode number 38. Let's go, Mets. Peace out.